They called you out in front of everyone. Maybe they told the group something you told them in private. Maybe they brought up your past in a room full of people who had no business knowing. Maybe they made a joke at your expense and everyone laughed, including you. And you sat there, mouth open. Nothing came out. You smiled. You laughed along. You said something weak like yeah, whatever, and moved on. And for the next 3 days you replayed that moment on loop. What you should have said. What you could have said. Why you said nothing. That silence is eating you alive. And here is what nobody tells you about it. You did not freeze because you are weak. You froze because your brain executed a survival program that is 400 million years old. And until you understand what that program is, and how to override it, it will keep running every single time someone puts you on the spot. This video is the override. Here is what happened inside your brain in that moment. The second someone exposed you in public, your amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain, fired an emergency signal. Not because you were in physical danger, but because your brain does not know the difference between a lion and a person publicly destroying your reputation in front of people whose opinion matters to you. To your nervous system, social threat and physical threat feel identical. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk spent decades studying how the body responds to threat. His research shows that when the threat is sudden and inescapable, the brain does not choose fight or flight. It chooses freeze. It shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for speech, reasoning, and decision-making, and floods your body with cortisol. That is why your mouth went dry. That is why your mind went blank. That is why the words disappeared. You were not being a coward. You were being a mammal. Your brain calculated that fighting back in that moment was too risky and it shut your system down to protect you. The problem is, it was wrong. And it cost you your dignity. Now let us go one layer deeper. Because the freeze was not just biological. It was trained. Think about where you learned to stay quiet when someone humiliated you. Most of us learned it young. At home. In school. In every environment where speaking up had consequences. Where expressing anger or hurt was met with more humiliation. Where the person who reacted was always the one who lost. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that cuts through this. He said the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The systems that trained you to freeze, the family dynamics, the school hierarchies, the social environments that punished reaction, they were not trying to destroy you. They were installing a survival strategy. But you are not a child anymore. And the strategy that kept you safe then is keeping you small now. Here is what those environments installed in your brain, a rule that says reacting to humiliation is dangerous. That silence is protection. That the person who stays calm and says nothing is the one with power. And that rule was true, in those environments. In those power structures. Against those people. But in the real world, amongst your peers, that rule is being weaponized against you. Because the person exposing you is counting on it. They know you will freeze. They have seen it before. They are using your own survival mechanism as the weapon. This is the third layer. And this is the one that makes it personal. The person who exposed you was not careless. They were strategic. In Islamic psychology, scholars like Al-Ghazali wrote extensively about the concept of hasad, a toxic envy that does not just want what you have, but wants to take it from you publicly. To strip you of your status in front of witnesses. The public exposure was not an accident. It was a power move. The audience was the weapon. The witnesses were the point. Because humiliation only works when people see it. And they chose you specifically because they calculated you would not respond. Think about that for a moment. They chose you because they already knew your freeze response. They had seen it. They had tested your limits quietly before going public. And when they found the edge, they exploited it in the most visible way possible. This is not about them being a bad person. This is about you being a predictable target. And you stop being a predictable target the moment you stop being predictable. If you are still watching right now, you are not like most people. You actually want out of this pattern. And that already separates you from everyone who just replays the moment and does nothing. So here is the weapon. 2 scripts. One for in the moment. One for after. In the moment script. The moment they expose you, your instinct is to explain, defend, or laugh it off. Do not do any of those things. Instead, you pause. You let the silence sit for exactly 2 seconds, long enough to feel uncomfortable for everyone in the room, not just you. Then you look at the person who exposed you, not the audience, directly at them, and you say this. That's interesting that you chose to share that here. That is it. Nothing else. You do not explain. You do not get angry. You do not laugh along. What just happened? You shifted the attention from the content of what they said to the decision they made to say it. You made their behavior the subject, not your secret. You put them on the spot without attacking them. And you did it calmly, which signals to everyone watching that you are not rattled, even if you are shaking inside. If they push back, if they say what, I was just joking, or why are you being so sensitive, you say this. I know. I just found it interesting. Then you say nothing more. You move the conversation on. You do not give them another moment of the group's attention. The subject is closed. You closed it. After script. For when they approach you privately later. Because they will. People who expose others in public almost always come back privately to manage the damage. They will say it was a joke. They will say you are overreacting. They will try to reset the relationship as if it did not happen. When they do, you say this. I am not angry. But I want to be clear. What you did was a choice. I do not know why you made it. But it is something I will remember. Then you drop it. You do not argue. You do not give them the emotional reaction they came for. You deliver the sentence and you go quiet. That sentence does three things. It removes their ability to gaslight you by calling it a joke. It establishes that you see it clearly and you are not pretending otherwise. And it plants a consequence without threatening one, which is the most powerful position you can hold. Now here is your homework. 1. Practice. 7 days. Every morning for the next 7 days, before you check your phone, you sit for 60 seconds and you rehearse. You replay a moment where you froze, any moment, it does not have to be the one that brought you here, and you mentally run the in-the-moment script. You see yourself pausing. You see yourself making eye contact. You hear yourself saying the line calmly. This is not visualization fluff. This is what neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman calls mental rehearsal, a deliberate practice of running motor and verbal sequences in the mind to build the neural pathways required to execute them under pressure. Your brain froze because it had no practiced response ready. It went blank because the situation was novel and threatening at the same time. Mental rehearsal removes the novelty. The next time someone tries to expose you, your brain will not search for a response. It will find one already loaded. 60 seconds. 7 mornings. That is the practice. You were not broken when you froze. You were running old code in a new situation. The code has been rewritten. Now you know what your brain did and why. You know the 3 layers, the biological freeze, the trained silence, and the calculated attack. And you have the exact words for both the moment and the aftermath. The next time someone tries to use a room full of people as a weapon against you, they will not find the same target. Subscribe. Because next week